Hall of Fame journey. And if you haven't already, check out part 1 that we released yesterday. It kind of goes over what traveling up to Cooperstown was like and just walking around the museum for the first time ever. So today we're going to go over the actual induction ceremony. And as I've mentioned before, it was just such a beautiful weekend, not only just spend time with the family, but the weather was beautiful as well. And so we were all in a great mood just heading over to the induction ceremony. Cooperstown has a nice little trolley that can take you right over there. And it's in a huge kind of park where they have the stage set up with a big screen monitor. And the way they had it set up was there was kind of a fenced off area with a bunch of folding chairs and then a huge green area in the back. And everywhere was just filled up with fans. So there was kind of an energy and a buzz. It was really fun. And just kind of knowing what those guys, how much hard work they put in and what it meant to not only them and their families, but also all the fans that watched them for so many years. So it was kind of exciting. I don't think I've really watched very many of the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies on TV. I usually will check out a speech online afterwards if it's someone that I was really interested in. So to watch the whole ceremony was a new experience for me, but I thought they did a really good job, not only of having some past Hall of Famers there, which we'll kind of go over, but just celebrating each guy individually, giving them enough time, and really just the president of the chairperson of the Hall of Fame, she spoke for a little while and mentioned some of the former greats that had passed away, and just kind of set the tone that we're here to celebrate today, and today is a great day. So it was fun. Now, I did mention that that there were seats set up there, and we got lucky. Both my sister Krista and her friend Jillian were there on the trip, and so we were able to get seats in that folded chair section. And I was very happy with that, just because the ceremony is a couple hours long. I'm an old man, so I like to sit down. And it was somewhat warm out, so it was just nice to have a place to sit. And we're obviously a little bit closer to the stage. Now, I will say, again, I'm just so thankful we had those seats, because the green area behind the seats goes on for quite a ways. And so if you did not get there early, you were very far away, and there was no chance that you're seeing the players' faces up on stage. And while I said they do have a big screen TV set up, not a TV, but like a projection screen, it wasn't huge. So if you were like pretty far back on the green area, even that would be tough to see. So I'm just so thankful to Jillian for getting us those seats. And I think they made the day even more special. So like I said, the weather was beautiful. They were handing out waters to everybody just to make sure no one was overheating. And they began the ceremony by introducing probably about 60 former players that are in the Hall of Fame. Now, they introduced guys like Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Big Papi, Cal Ripken. Like there was some all-time greats there, and just also just guys that were inducted long ago, but you can tell they're probably like everybody's big brother that gets inducted. Like I'm guessing they probably come to almost every Hall of Fame ceremony or event just to help celebrate the game and just make sure that it's their era is not forgotten and is always celebrated as well. So guys from like the 60s, 70s, like Billy Williams, Raleigh Fingers, Goose Gossage. Like I imagine they're at a lot of events, but it was really cool to see them there as well. Now, Todd did get to go first. And to be honest, I was a bit nervous for his speech, just because after watching him for 17 years, he never once showed that he liked to speak in public, let alone even speak to reporters or do interviews or anything like that. So I didn't know if he was just going to fight through it and try and do a speech and struggle, or if he was just going to be like, I don't care, and just do like a super quick, hey, thank you everyone, and then really not give a speech. Like I didn't know what was going to happen. So the way they did it is they had a former teammate kind of have a introductory video, kind of talking about how great that player was. And so for Todd, it was Larry Walker, who just got inducted into Hall of Fame a couple years ago. And Larry did a great job. Larry's naturally funny. And one thing I loved is that Larry said, "Oh, there's no doubt Todd Helton is the greatest Rocky ever." And so I just love that, because in this day and age of sports talk radio and them trying to make arguments out of anything, there is no argument. If there's only two players in the Hall of Fame and the other one is saying that Todd Helton is the greatest Rocky ever, I'm going to go with that and say he is the greatest Rocky that has ever been and probably will ever be. So after the video, Todd was introduced by the commissioner, and he began his speech, and he made a joke about not enjoying public speaking, but I think he kind of set that standard, but then he did really well. He told some really funny stories from his playing days, but he balanced it out with some really heartfelt moments and thank yous for his family or for former teammates and coaches. And I thought it was a really good speech. It was not short. So like I said, I was concerned about him just trying to get in and out. And I think he took his time and just shared some really cool stories that I hope the fans of the Rangers who were there for Beltre, or the Tigers that were there for Leland, or the Twins that were there for Joe Mauer, I hope they enjoyed it, and I hope they kind of got a feel for who Todd was and enjoyed some of those stories from his playing days. I won't share all the stories. I think if you're interested at all, the speech is up on YouTube, and I think it would do it better justice for you to hear it from Todd and kind of hear his dry sense of humor going. But one thing I loved is he told a story about how he still gets recognized in Knoxville, Tennessee, where he went to college, and they're like, "Hey, are you Todd Helton? Didn't you play football for UT?" And his response is always like, "Yep." And I played a little bit of baseball after that. So it's just funny that it just shows in the South how obsessed people are with college football that even in Tennessee, they're going to just say, "Hey, didn't you play football for Tennessee?" But I thought he did such a great job. And really, the other three guys did as well. For how long the ceremony was, I thought the speeches were interesting. The videos were good. And overall, I thought everyone did great. And obviously, I'm a little biased, but I'm going to say Todd did the best. So the ceremony itself was just really fun, a great celebration. I hadn't thought about baseball or Todd Helton or really anything like that in that depth for quite a while. And the whole weekend just reminded me of what a big part it was for me growing up. Like obviously teenage, young 20s, that's formative years. And that definitely was one of my favorite hobbies, to watch Todd and the Rockies play. And just spending that weekend with my family who loves baseball just as much, if not more than I do, was so special. And it exceeded all expectations. And I loved every minute of it. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. And as a special treat, I did do some short interviews with the family so they can kind of give you their perspective on some of their favorite moments from the weekend. So I hope you enjoy. One note before I do start those interviews is my little nephew, Brett, was on the trip with us. And I do try to interview him at the beginning. And then afterwards, when I'm interviewing everybody else, he was still full of energy and running around. And so you may hear some background noise, but just know that's a future little baseball fan who's just having a good time. So hope you enjoy the interviews. All right, for this part, I wanted to talk to the family and see what their thoughts were on this Hall of Fame trip and just kind of get some of their favorite moments and what they'll remember from this weekend. So to start out, we have my sister Sarah and our youngest guest ever, Brett. Brett, how old are you?
Good.
Good.
Are you 3?
I'm 3.
You're 3. Very good. And Sarah, I won't ask how old you are. Brett, what was your favorite thing that you saw at the museum yesterday? Did you like the Philly Fanatic?
I like going walks in the pond.
That was a fun activity too.
Yeah.
Throwing rocks in a pond. And Sarah, I know you love throwing rocks in a pond too, but do you perhaps have a different answer to your favorite kind of either something that you saw at the museum yesterday or something from the induction ceremony today? Like kind of what jumps to mind when you think about this weekend?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is just that this trip as a whole has kind of been a bucket list item for me, especially to do it with you and Krista and mom and dad, because I am probably the least sporty of all of our family, but baseball is like the one thing that I've loved. And so being able to come to Cooperstown with you guys and mom and dad, and just because you never know if we'll get to do that again. And so the whole experience has been kind of a dream of mine that came true. And so, and then to bring Brett along was really fun too, and made it a whole new experience.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking about that on the way out here. Like you said, you're definitely not as obsessed with sports as Krista and I, but baseball's always been one that you have been interested in and that you've loved. And so, like you said, I think it was fun just as a family activity that we all got to do together. And it was just fun sharing stories all weekend as far as little memories that popped up either from the Rockies or from other teams that we saw represented in the museum. And so, yeah, I agree. I think that's a good way to start out and just say it was just a really fun family trip. And I think this is a good preview. We may hear Brett playing in the background for all the interviews that we do tonight, but it's been fun having him here. So what about expectations? What were you expecting from the museum or the ceremony? And did it meet or not meet any of those expectations?
I think Cooperstown as a whole and the museum, as well as the induction ceremony, exceeded my expectations. You could definitely tell that everyone here just takes pride in the whole weekend and enjoys it, and that everyone just loves baseball and loves the game and loves the art of it. And so just the organization and the atmosphere and the people, everything just exceeded my expectations, and it was all just very magical in the beautiful baseball way.
I agree. Well said. Well said. All right. So we're going to get the other members of the family in here. So we will say bye. Oh, that was Brett saying bye. All right. Next person. My mom, a.k.a. Nana. How are you today?
I'm great. We've had a great weekend.
It has been great. So let's start out with the museum yesterday. Was there anything either Rockies related or just a display that jumps out to you that really kind of blew you away?
Yeah, I loved seeing all the Rockies memorabilia stuff that was on display, like especially Eric Young's pants for having 6 stolen bases all in one game. And then there were Ubaldo's hat from his no-hitter, and those were things that I loved seeing. But they also had a great display of Todd Helton stuff for his induction into the Hall of Fame, and it could relate to all our favorite Rockies that we've had along the years.
Absolutely. And he, like the video said today, is the best of them all. So it's just kind of fun seeing all the really cool accomplishments that the other players have had, but then really celebrating the top guy for the Rockies.
Right. And I really liked in the parade couple of the old time Chicago Cub players from when I was a Cubs fan back when I was in high school. So that was really fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I probably won't even remember, but I know Ryan Sandberg was there, which was cool for me because you taught me to be a Cubs fan first, since we didn't even have the Rockies yet. And so he was my first favorite player. And then for you, it was Fergie Jenkins in the parade, right? That you got really excited for?
Yeah, Fergie Jenkins and Billy Williams, who I really can't remember for sure whether he was a first baseman or a third baseman, but one of the two, I'm pretty sure that was his position that he played.
Yeah, it was fun seeing those guys. Just the names that we would always hear about on TV growing up and everything, and just see them smiling as they drove by. Well, very good. What about the ceremony today? Was there any moment that stuck out for you?
Oh, I loved hearing Todd's speech, and I was really excited that there was so many Rockies fans present that supported him today.
Yeah, that was really cool. He was the first one to go, so I think everybody had lots of energy and the full crowd was there, and so it kind of worked out nice. But that standing ovation that he got when he was first introduced as a Hall of Famer was pretty loud.
Pretty loud, really exciting.
Well, very good. Well, thank you for making your debut on my podcast. I know you're probably one of my top listeners, so I appreciate you coming on and creating content today.
I always enjoy listening to your podcasts.
All right, next up is my dad, a.k.a. Papa. Welcome, Papa.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us what stuck out for you this weekend, whether it's from the actual Hall of Fame walking around the museum or the induction ceremony today or anything that's happened here at the house?
Well, this event's been on my bucket list for many, many years, and I was hoping sometime I would be able to be here, and a dream came true, especially with my family, too. That was definitely a big plus.
Yeah, the timing kind of worked out perfect that Todd just happened to be our favorite player for the last 20 years, and him getting inducted is a good reason for us all to get out here, because I agree. I think it was a bucket list item for all of us, so it's definitely lived up to the hype.
I mean, all the years he was on the Rockies baseball team, he was so nice to everybody in our family, either at the game or spring training. He was extra nice to the kids were smaller at that time, including yourself, and he was not shy about being nice and talking to us and everything and signing an autograph or two. So it just makes you feel good about the guy like that.
Yeah, it seemed like even when he became a superstar, he just kind of understood that interacting with the fans is a big part of being a professional baseball player. And so it seemed like it never really bothered him. Like he just knew he was making our day, just even saying hi or signing an autograph or something.
That's true. I mean, I worked for the Rockies for a little bit, and even behind the scenes, he is super nice. And so it's a genuine, nice person.
Can you tell me why the baseball player who was one of the very first players inducted into Hall of Fame is special to you?
Well, I just happen to have the identical name as he does. His nickname was the Big Train, and his full name was Walter Johnson, just like me.
That's a good reason to like someone. So he obviously had a few things there in the museum. Did any one of his items really jump out to you that you thought was really interesting?
Of course, the plaque with his face on it and everything, and then all his stats, and it's just amazing. I mean, he holds records still from the 1920s and 30s that nobody's broken since.
Yeah, it's crazy looking back at his numbers. I forget the exact number, but I think I saw one of his charts over his memorabilia was the second most wins ever behind Cy Young.
I think that's correct, yes.
And then he was a big strikeout guy, so he's right up there on those charts. But it was just really cool to see some of his stuff that's obviously about 100 years old now.
Yeah, one season, I think he had 20 wins, and he batted 400 for that year.
He was like Ohtani before Ohtani.
That's right.
Well, what about for Todd or the Rockies? Did anything stick out for you at the museum there?
It was just, a dream come true, and to see proof, all the posters and everything else that were there, that he has made it, and that just made me so happy.
He's officially a legend. What about his speech today? He had a bunch of stories and just kind of little funny moments that happened throughout his career. Which one was your favorite?
I like the one where he, if he does something that day or whatever, and he hits 2 or 3 or 4 hits that day, he'll stick with that particular item or whatever he did. And he mentioned that one day driving to the ballpark, he got a speeding ticket, but he also had, I believe, 3 hits that day. So the next day, driving the same route, he got another speeding ticket, but he still hit 3 more hits. So he just said, I'm going to keep this going. So he told the policeman on the second day that we'll see you tomorrow. And sure enough, on the third day, he did the same thing, got a speeding ticket. And I think I'm not sure if his hitting streak continued or not quite. I think he got just 1 hit that third day.
Yeah, he eventually had to stop that one. Otherwise, he would have got his license taken away. But I did like that, how he just said, hey, whatever it takes, I'm going to get hits. Yeah, I think he did a great job. And like you said, it's just kind of fun to cement his place in history. And even Larry Walker in the intro video today mentioned that he's the all-time greatest Rocky. So it was definitely fun to come out here as a family and celebrate.
Yeah, as we all know that our whole family's been with the Rockies from day one, and he's definitely the number 1 Rocky, and it's going to be hard to beat his record and everything else.
100% agree. Well, thank you for making your debut on the podcast, and this has just been an awesome weekend.
It's been really, really, it's a dream to come true. So
to be on the podcast.
To be on the podcast and to come here to Cooperstown.
Very nice, very nice. Next up, my sister Krista, returning guest, huge baseball fan. Tell us, what has this weekend been like for you?
This weekend has been more than I expected. It's just been kind of in awe the whole time, I feel like. Also, just the city itself, I think, is awesome. I didn't know what to expect from Cooperstown, but it's just the cutest little small town ever. Everybody's been super nice. But then walking through the Baseball Hall of Fame yesterday was just so many things that I could have spent days looking at, basically, that we had to try to fit into 6 hours. But it was just super awesome. So many things that I could remember from different parts of my childhood, and collecting cards with you and watching some big games on TV and everything. It was just a whole little culmination of my life up to now.
It has been wonderful. Can you give me one Rocky piece of memorabilia and one non-Rocky piece of memorabilia that you just thought was super interesting at the museum?
Well, the whole Rockies little locker that they had was pretty much just made for me, I feel like, because it had Trevor Story's jersey and Ubaldo's hat, and then Todd Helton's whatever was in there, just talked about him. And I think it was supposed to be his bat, but they had taken it out for the Hall of Fame. But yeah, it was just basically all of my main favorite players from the last 20 years put into one locker in the Hall of Fame. So that was super awesome. Non-Rockies thing, I would say, was super cool. For some reason, what stood out for me, I don't know who this guy was, but he seemed to have a prominent part in the Hall of Fame, was Christy Mathewson. I don't even know how to say his name, but there was a lot of stuff about him, and there was a lot of quotes about him and little tidbits about him that said that he was one of the classiest old timers and changed the way people played the game and they wanted to be him. And so I just thought it was cool because somebody I've never heard of, but I saw him so many times in the hall, and he ended up being like a pretty prominent figure throughout the day.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too. Even a huge baseball fan like you can go to the Hall of Fame and discover someone they didn't know much about and learn to appreciate them, and obviously the game more. So, I think that's awesome. What about from the ceremony today? Any moment really stick out to you?
Basically just listening to Todd talk, mostly I think about his family was what got me the most, because like I was telling the other family members, I feel like I grew up with him. So then I feel like I also grew up with when he had his daughters, and like seeing him get older throughout the years as well. And so it's just when he talks about his daughters and his mom, and then I just feel like I was like there for all of that. And so it was just kind of cool to see the finale of it, basically, after we've been there through it all.
Yeah, we were talking about at dinner tonight. You were how old when he started his career in 1997?
13.
13, and then he plays 17 years, so you're 30 when he retires. A lot of life happens in that time, so I would say you've definitely grown up with Todd. And can you share with me your favorite Todd Helton moment from his career?
Probably when we got the third out to win the national, or let's see, was that when we were going to the World Series, when he was the out basically to end the game, and it was the triumphant arms in the air, and it was like pure joy when for someone that doesn't show a lot of expression on his face or emotions, he was like so excited, and that was super fun to watch because it was just so different, and you could tell it was like, wow, he's really wanted this for a long time and deserves it.
I agree. I think that moment is iconic for any Rockies fans. Well, I will get you out of here. You're a returning guest, and you will return once again. You're my go-to baseball expert, so thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me again.
Another returning guest, everyone's favorite Celtics fan, James. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
All these returning guests, it's almost as if I'm having my own podcast Hall of Fame here. See what I did there?
Yeah, good one.
Oh, I'm a dork. So I think you have an interesting perspective because you obviously did not grow up as a Rockies fan, but are a huge Rockies fan now, as well as keeping your Phillies fandom alive. So tell us maybe something from the Hall of Fame that really stuck out to you, because obviously I think you appreciated some of the Phillies stuff a lot more than all of us Rockies fans did.
Yeah, I mean, it was just an amazing. I just love baseball so much in general. The Phillies obviously have a longer history, so there was a bit more in there about for them than there were for the Rockies. But I mean, there was a lot of cool Rockies stuff too. You know, the EY pants just stand out because I just remember how electric he was. But you know, the Roy Halladay stuff, obviously getting to see the Fanatic suit, how worn out it was, and you know, obviously that all the Todd Helton thing at the end with all of his stuff, and it was just incredible. You know, the people, everybody there was incredible. So many fans, everybody just so excited to be there. You know, obviously all that Babe Ruth stuff was incredible. It's amazing to see.
I know you and I were really hoping there'd be some Roy Halladay stuff in there, just because obviously growing up, he was one of the all-time best, like, just pitchers that I had ever seen, and just the fact that he gets to have his own little section in there and be appreciated by maybe these young kids that haven't seen him before. But he, I think, is kind of underappreciated for how good he was.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, I think at the time he was, you know, everybody knew he was one of the best, and he was awesome. He was a good guy and was never suspected of anything crazy or whatever. So he was always, you know, upheld nicely. But I don't know. I think, you know, obviously him passing at such a young age in a tragic accidents, it kind of props him up a little bit more, but also like it's easier to forget about him because he's not around and showing up to events and stuff like that. So,
You mentioned the Babe Ruth stuff. You and I walked through that section together, and I think one thing that stood out to me, not just for obviously how old the equipment is and how it's just seems archaic compared to the stuff that they use nowadays, but Babe, he's kind of larger than life, but when you see his real life uniform, he was not a huge guy. So it almost makes him, being one of the best home run hitters ever, even more impressive.
I mean, honestly, like I'm 5'9". I guarantee you he wasn't taller than I was. He was a little bit wider than me, but nothing crazy. Not as big as like you and I talked about. I think we got a misconception of him because of John Goodman in the movie The Babe, but you know, he definitely wasn't as big as I always picture him. And, you know, he was a classy dude, always had, you know, fancy shoes on and stuff, wore a suit. And I mean, he was the biggest thing ever during his day. I mean, they had everything was about, it was insane. It was awesome though. It was crazy.
We might need to revisit because maybe Fred Flintstone wasn't as chubby as we thought either. I kind of picture what Babe Ruth is like in the Hall of Fame now is I really think kind of what Michael Jordan will be for like our grandchildren. Like the stories will just seem so unbelievable and just so ridiculous, but he really was that good during our time.
Yeah, I think it's already started a little bit, you know. Now people are, you know, looking at Jordan as kind of a thing of the past, and there's so many like stories about him and people like talking about how crazy he was about competitiveness and golf and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I think it's already started, but yeah, once he's gone and, you know, generations down the line, it'll be just, you know, insane stories. And he was, you know, he took on 30 players and beat all of them or something, you know.
See, this is why James is podcast Hall of Fame, because in a baseball Hall of Fame podcast, we talk about Michael Jordan. What about during the ceremony today? Any particular story or anecdote stick out to you?
I mean, I really loved the personalization of the guys. They, you know, they seem like regular guys. You can hear in their voice how genuinely honored they are to be there. And it's just, you know, they were kids at one point playing in the backyard, pretending to be somebody else. And now there's kids pretending to be them. It was moving. It was awesome. It's great to see. And like I said, just all the people there so excited about those players. It was really cool to see.
Totally agree. Well said. Well, we will definitely have a follow-up episode now that your Celtics are the champions of the world and the Nuggets are coming for them. So thank you for joining us again today.
Thanks for having me back on. Go Seas.
And last but not least is our friend Jillian. Jillian, I think I've referred to you as a future guest on the podcast before because you were the reason I got to go see Victor Wembanyama play. And I'm hoping you will come on for a full episode so we can hear more of your story. But you are one of the biggest sports and especially baseball fans that I know. So how has this weekend been for you?
This weekend has been amazing, very nostalgic, I feel like I've had goosebumps multiple times throughout the weekend, just all kind of hitting me at once. But yeah, amazing, iconic, wonderful.
I like it. So same question will be for you is, can you give me a favorite Rocky item that you saw in the museum and one that is non-Colorado Rocky?
I think my favorite Rockies item was seeing the bat that Todd Helton used for his that home run that he hit in his last game of his career. I think it was a Kadir model bat, which was also kind of cool. Just a little tidbit. But yeah, just again, one of those goosebump moments seeing that bat and thinking back to what an amazing moment that was to end his career with that.
Absolutely. And what about non-Rocky?
So non-Rocky, I think there was a couple, but number one, just walking into that hall with all the plaques, and just being overwhelmed by all of them. But I think the first one that I noticed right off the bat was Jackie Robinson. And just the fact that it had been worn, it just looked different than so many of the other plaques because he was so meaningful to so many people and everybody wanted to touch it, and it's kind of been rubbed shiny, I guess. But yeah, just seeing that and knowing how much he's meant to the game of baseball, and yeah, very powerful. And then one more. The other thing I would say is I did enjoy seeing little tidbits of like women in baseball peppered throughout the museum a little bit. There was one little exhibit, but I think my favorite moments were seeing how they were small little items throughout. But I think one of them was I've learned that there's a female team called the Colorado Silver Bullets, I think it was, that went around playing men's teams. And they had a couple of their items throughout the museum. So I thought that was awesome.
I thought that was so cool to see the Silver Bullets in there. They were playing when I was in high school, so I was definitely aware of them, but I don't think I ever went to see them play. But what a cool concept. And I'd really think if someone put a team like that together today, it could be huge. But I agree that the women's influence in baseball was definitely ready and available for people to see there. And we'll go into it in your future episode, but there's a non-zero chance that you are going to be in there someday.
We'll make it happen.
That's a teaser for those that you don't know the story. But going back to what you said about the plaque room, I was kind of blown away with how much I really did enjoy that room. I was thinking, oh yeah, it'll be fun to see their plaques, whatever. But like you said, the meaning that those plaques have for not only those players, but just for the game in general, like you just get to see their faces and just think like these are the greatest players that have ever played. And then especially there's another level up with guys like Jackie Robinson, or I really liked going to that original class section that had Walter Johnson in it and Babe Ruth. And it was just really cool just to think about what those guys have meant to the game that's been around for over 100 years. So I think those were both excellent answers.
Thank you.
What about the ceremony today, that the speeches and the induction and everything like that? Anything stick out to you from today?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously Todd's speech was my favorite part. I felt like brought together so many pieces of what the game meant to him, and not only just the people that were so influential to him and helped him get to where he was, but also just the little moments, of him kind of throughout his career that might not have meant much in the moment, but added up to something so special. And yeah, I just think that also knowing that he's not one to make speeches at all. He hates talking about himself. He's mentioned that at the beginning of his speech, but just knowing that, and then knowing how well he did in that speech and how much of a presence he had. And obviously I'm a little biased, but I just thought he did an amazing job and moved everybody to some sort of emotion at least. And I definitely teared up multiple times.
I was right there with you. And I was a little bit nervous going in just because we saw 17 years of proof that he does not like talking in public or to the media or anything like that. So I was kind of worried that it was going to be awkward and bad, but I agree. I think he did a great job. And even us that knew most details about his career, I feel like we still heard stories that we had never heard before. So great weekend, great group of people to be with. And thanks everybody for joining the podcast.